So, how do you know if you have executive presence? That's the number one thing that I coach my clients on. And I thought about really examining this from a perspective of how do we quantify that? Because to tell you the truth, it's not what you think.
Welcome to the Sam Linton Show, the podcast designed to help you shift your mindset, find your voice, and change your world. Sam is a pastor, coach, and expert communicator, helping leaders and entrepreneurs like you step into their purpose, speak with confidence, and make a lasting difference. So let's dive in.
All right, let's get into it. So, if you've been listening to this for any period of time, that I work with mostly executives. I work with teams of people too. I'm open to work with anyone, but executives tend to seek me out because I always think it's my boyish good charm and sense of humor, but it's actually probably because I've been in an executive role for my entire career pretty much, and I have been teaching and coaching people in executive function for over a decade. So I've dealt with people at every single level, CEOs, just people that are in the C-suite, people that want to be there, entrepreneurs, business owners. And I wanted to really examine this quickly about executive presence, because people will say, oh, that person, they've got executive presence, or John, he's really got executive presence. But what the heck does that mean? Seriously, what does that mean? Does that mean that is it the way they dress? Is it what? And so I put together a list of some of the checkpoints of what would make executive presence real for you. And I did this kind of quickly, so this is going to be on the shorter side today. But if you're an executive, you don't have time to listen to an hour and a half long podcast. Let's be honest. This is just the fact that you're listening, that's a big deal. So let's get into it, and let's start with the first one. How do you know that somebody is truly demonstrating executive presence? You'll know it when you see it, but it's something that we can aim to simply emulate by doing some things differently. So let's look at the first thing. First, an executive that has executive presence demonstrates confidence without arrogance. Boy, is this a difficult line. It is a really, really difficult line to walk, because unconfident people will often confuse your confidence as a sign of arrogance. And that's just not true. It's just not true. But the problem is, how do we define confidence versus arrogance? Well, let me tell you what I would look at as the difference. You want to speak with confidence by saying declarative statements and essentially being willing to own your decisions. That's confidence. Arrogance is when you tend to focus solely on your accomplishments and what you do. And I feel bad because politicians have the difficult task of walking this line all the time. They have to demonstrate that they're confident, but they have only a certain amount of time. And let's be honest, most of us don't know what politicians do. Most of us don't have any idea. So they'll get up there and they'll speak and they sound arrogant, but they're saying like, look, this is what I can do. This is how I can help. This is what I can do for this particular whatever it is. And they sound arrogant. But confidence is when you are willing to stick with what you said, stick with your decisions, own it when it goes wrong, own it when it goes bad. And so one of the ways that you do this is by speaking, and we talked about this already, speaking more succinctly. If you're able to articulate something that is confusing and you really generate those ideas into a short, burst of words that are meaningful, you're displaying confidence because you're not over-explaining. On the other side, if you're arrogant, you'll say, just do what I tell you, don't worry about it. Why would you even question it? How do you think I got here? Well, that's not leadership either. That's arrogance. Okay, and we don't measure out our commands in arrogant ways. So we try to remain confident. All right, so confidence with no arrogance. Next, and if you need this one, listen to last week's podcast. Poise under pressure. Poise under pressure. One of, and I don't like political things, but here we are. It doesn't matter. One of the most gripping evidences of this would be President George W. Bush, when he was told about the terrorist attack on 9/11. He was sitting there reading stories to children. You could watch the video. When he found out that America was under attack, and he's told the story in several interviews and in his book, he chose to continue to finish the story before he exited. Now, he was on his way out anyway, but I don't know, if I was the president, what would I have done? I would have probably started screaming and been like, oh, we gotta go. I don't know. I'm not the president. I couldn't imagine that pressure, or knowing that Americans had died and what we were going to do about that. So the poise under pressure is your ability to stop and proactively react. Let me say that again, because that's kind of weird. Proactively react. That means that you have to react to a situation that's changed, but you want to maintain your level of professionalness so that people see that you're confident enough to be able to handle the pressure. And there is going to be pressure. I mean, there's no question in my mind that there's pressure. So you want to make sure that you have to utilize a bit of a poker face or even like a smile when something goes wrong. I've coached with Dale Carnegie. There's a program that I was a part of where they would teach you how to respond to hostility. And so few people know how to do that because you're not expecting that people are going to be hostile with you, but it happens. It's poise under pressure. Okay, so we got confidence without arrogance. We got poise under pressure. Next, we have something that I call gravitas. Gravitas. It just means weight. That's all. Gravitas. It's heavy. It's heavy. So a couple things will help you with your gravitas. Gravitas happens when your words have weight and meaning. So, of course, how do we make our words weigh more? Well, we say less. And another way that we have gravitas is when we're in a meeting and we don't say anything. You don't have to be the one that's always talking. In fact, if you're the executive, my encouragement for you is to try to let the people that are on your team fill the silence. You don't have to do that. You don't have to fill that silence. Let them do it. You should appear as though you're focused, but not appear as though you're just waiting for your next opportunity to talk. Now, with gravitas comes something else that I call, and I've coached a lot of people on this, something that started to happen recently with executives, and this is particular, and I'm not going to sit there and argue with you about sexism and women and men are different. I believe that women and men are different, and I coach them according to their strengths. And both of them have major strengths, and there's some opportunities. And one opportunity that I've seen with a lot of female executives, but this happens with men too, men do this as well, is something that I call the up on the end. The up on the end. Okay, so I'll give you an example. So today we are going to talk about raising gas prices, and we're going to talk about how we just got through our budget, and it's going to be great. And if anybody has any questions, it's going to be amazing. So what we're doing is we're putting like this imaginary question, almost like you're asking your audience's permission to proceed. Like, is it okay that we talk about what I'm going to talk about? And I have 600 people under me, but I'm afraid, like, that's a thing that I've noticed. Gravitas is what I say. You want to take an imaginary anvil and stick it on the end of your last word. So today we're going to talk about the budget. Today we're going to talk about the new hiring process. Today, we are going to examine our standard operating procedures. Do you see the difference? Versus today, we're going to talk about our standard operating procedures. It's just a nervous thing, but I think it's back to that gravitas thing, because we always wonder, like, are people going to accept what we're saying? And the way you want to have them accept what you're saying is by saying it differently. So you want to make sure that you bring those words to a point and bring them down. Unless you are asking a question like, hey, what's up with our standard operating procedures? Like, that's different, right? Okay. Moving along. We're doing great. You're doing great. We're 10 minutes in. Okay, so let's take a look at another thing. Body language is huge. Body language is huge, especially if you're an executive. Your body language matters more. So you have to use authority in body language, meaning eye contact, but not creepy. So you want to give eye contact. You want to be looking at people, but you don't want to be like leering in at them where they're intimidated. You want to make sure that your posture is tall and open. When I coach executives about this, I try to get them to not slouch and to be open, because you want people to want to come and talk to you. You want to make sure you're not fidgeting or doing those things that make you appear unconfident. And then when you are speaking, if you're doing a presentation, you want to have deliberate movement, not nervous movement, which again, I don't know what your movement is. If you want to jump on a discovery call, I can evaluate your speaking and we could talk about that. But you want to have deliberate movement in that you are doing what you're doing with your body, with your hands, with your face, and when you move from side to side on purpose and not by accident. Because if it's by accident, you're like, well, I always do that. Well, that's a tick. That's a tick. And there are some people that they do that so much, they don't even know that they do it. I'll give you an example. I was coaching a lady, and I think I may have told this story before. But every single time she would speak, brilliant. She was probably smarter than most people I met. She was in the C-suite for a team. She would get up to speak. She knew her stuff cold, like she had no notes. Every time she started to speak, she'd stick her leg out and just start wiggling her leg. And when I said, hey, what if we put our feet and planted them? That'll help you with you being tempted to put your leg out and kind of move it back and forth. And I kid you not, this is what she said. What do you mean by putting my leg out? She was unaware. Why would she be? She's focused on the audience. She's not focused on herself. That's why she has me. So I showed her what it looked like, and then we worked on it, and she was by then keeping both of her feet firmly planted on the floor. When you have nervous tics, when you twiddle, when you pull at your hair, when you fidget in your pockets, when you sway side to side, you're conveying that you are not executive. You're conveying the opposite. You're conveying actually that you're nervous to be there and you shouldn't be there. You're like, where's my real replacement going to be? You don't want to do that. Okay. Next of all, we are going to encourage you to be authentic. Authentic. Authenticity eats skill when it comes to presentation for breakfast. This is why some people go, well, why is somebody like Elon Musk considered a decent speaker, or some of these people that are really low monotone people, like, why are they good? Like Ben Stein. Like Ben Stein delivered my commencement address at Liberty when I graduated. And I remember him speaking, and he was just the way he was in the commercials. Now, if you don't know who Ben Stein is because you're under 40, which is quite possible, he's the guy that goes, do you have dry eyes, for the Visine ads. All right. And his commencement address was just spoken the same way. But here's what is interesting about that. He was who he was. Now, I would encourage everyone, if I were coaching anyone, I would encourage you to have more energy to the degree that it's appropriate. But authenticity, people can smell if you're fake. I'm energetic by nature, so when I'm speaking, it's energetic. So if I got up and I was more like formal and poised, and I read a lot more, people go, are you okay? Because that's not me. Authenticity is you as an executive showing that you're comfortable to your people who you are. And when you're willing to get there, like, look, this was a struggle, folks. Oh, man, it was hard for us to get here. Oh, boy. And I'm not saying you have to tell your deepest, darkest secrets, but what I'm saying is authenticity goes a lot longer than you give it credit for, and it adds to your executive presence. It really, really does add to your executive presence. So here's the final thing. I told you this was going to be a shorter one. Here's how you want to kind of ask yourself this question. This will kind of determine whether or not you're being executive. All right, here it is. Number one, when you're speaking, do people lean in and like pay attention, or are they gone like yesterday's vegetables? Are they on their phone? Are they, passing notes back and forth? Are they on their computer? Okay, that's the first question. After you talk, second question, do others feel clearer or do they feel more confused? Meaning, after you have a meeting, do others feel more confident about doing the job, or are they more confused? Third and final, do you bring calm into a chaotic situation, or do you bring chaos into a calm situation? Executives bring the reins in and keep everybody level-headed. That's 3 quick questions you could ask yourself. Those are like bonus things above the tips we gave you. But this is a way that you can really examine your executive presence. If you want help, podcast at samuellinton.com. I'm your guy. I love working with executives because I feel like I'm helping an entire company. When the leader speaks more clearly, the whole entire organization gets better. So thank you for joining on this episode. And until next time, shift your mindset, find your voice, change your world. We'll see you soon.